Hey friends, if many of you don't know, my name is Alan Lee and I've been in the handyman industry now for quite a few years. And with that, I have seen a lot of things that I've done right, and I've also seen a lot of things that I've done wrong. In this video here, my hope and my expression is to tell you guys some of the things that I've done wrong in the past, things that I've said to clients, things that I've done in front of clients. And we also took a poll on the Handyman Journey Mastermind Facebook group of things that handymen would recommend to not do in front of clients. And also asked a bunch of my family and friends of things that they would like handymen to not do in front of them. So I have comprised a pretty big list here. I'm going to go over the top 10 things that you do not want to do in front of a client. These are things you don't want to do and things you don't want to say. So let's jump into it. Number one here is don't cuss. Don't use profanity around a client. One guy in the Handyman Journey group, he shared a story of he was at a client's house and their daughter came down the stairs just spouting the F word. And the mom asked the kid, "Where'd you hear that?" And she said, "Well, I heard the DirecTV guy who's right outside my window and he was using that word all the time. And that's where I learned it," right? I don't know if she expressed it, in that adequate of terms, but that's where she had learned it. So you need to watch out what you're saying, because people are hearing what you're saying, even if you think that no one is around. If you're up on the roof, if you're on the side of a house, there's always someone listening. And really, that could be the homeowner, that could be the homeowner's kids, that could be the homeowner's grandparents, that could be a future client that lives next door that's hearing you say these things. So you want to make sure that you speak professional in every single aspect that you can. Number two, I think this is very important, and I think a lot of people do it wrong, is don't talk badly about other people's work. When you get to a house and someone had hired another handyman or another contractor to do another piece of work, don't just demolish that job. Don't just say, "Man, this person did such a horrible job and I can't believe this," because it might have been the homeowner who did that job. It's never good practice to criticize someone else's work, because at the end of the day, like someone had pointed out in the Handyman Journey Mastermind group, is oftentimes when you come up with a client that is just super negative about every contractor or every handyman that they've ever worked for, you typically don't want to work for that client. They're probably going to go ahead and criticize the work that you do. Same with if you're going around criticizing everyone else's work, people don't really want to work with you because you're kind of putting out that same energy. And it's just never good to talk badly about someone else's work. You can go in and fix the things that are wrong and show the client, what was done incorrectly, but in a nice manner, not in a demeaning manner. You definitely don't want to go around talking horribly about other people's work. Number three, now I think this is very important, but it is something that's probably wildly contested by many people depending on what walks of life you are in, but I would say don't smoke. Some people would say don't smoke around a client, don't smoke on the client's property. I would just say, as a professional, if you can help it, don't smoke at all. Because whether you know it or not, that smoke actually lingers on your clothes far longer than you think it does. There's nothing worse than being a homeowner and having a service professional, show up to your house just reeking of cigarette smoke or any other kind of smoke that you could smoke. So I would just say just don't smoke in general as a professional. And if you do your due diligence to smoke 5 hours before you show up at the client's house. Cover yourself in cologne, do whatever you can to mask that. But ultimately, I would say to, again, present a professional atmosphere when you meet with the client is just don't smoke. Number four, this is huge. Don't argue with the clients, and also don't argue with employees. Don't argue with anyone while you're at the client's house. We'll leave it at that. That just ultimately sheds a bad light. When you start getting in an argument with a client, there is no recovering from that. It's only going to get worse. You've heard the saying that the client is always right? Right? That's pretty much how it needs to be, because you will never, ever win an argument with a client. Just like you see it all the time on Facebook or social media, is people are arguing with each other where you're not going to change the other person's mind. And especially when you are the service provider at a client's house, you're not going to change their mind about anything. They've already made up their mind about you. So if they have bad things to say, just, take it and just leave. Say, unfortunately, I don't think that we can work together anymore. I mean no bad blood, but by all means, do not get in an argument with them. And also, don't start calling your employees and get in an argument with them. Or if you have an employee working at their house, don't come and just start, just grilling them in front of the client. You want to make sure you go and do that in a professional manner, somewhere private where you and your employee can talk privately without the client present, because that just sheds a whole bad light on your whole entire business. Number 5, and this is something that we have all been guilty of, is do not assume. You know what they say about people who assume, but it's never good to assume. You always want to err on the side of over-communication. Make sure that you understand completely and entirely the whole job that the person is trying to convey. I've gotten myself personally in a lot of trouble by assuming things in the past. Just for instance, you'll go in and you'll do a drywall job and you'll fix the drywall, and the client assumes that you're going to paint the job, and you assume that you're not painting it, that they're going to paint it. So you show up and they assume that you have paint, you have matching paint. Although it's like, how would I bring matching paint? I don't even have a piece of paint to match it with. But regardless of the fact, don't assume, right? Always have these upfront conversations with people. So when you're talking about pricing, when you're talking about sales, when you're talking about things like that, things that we talk about in a lot of the Handyman Journey books is be upfront with your communication. Make sure that you've written out a whole list of questions that you need to ask for every single part of the job. Even down to when someone, has a toilet that they want you to replace, right? Does the toilet come with a wax ring? Does the toilet come with new bolts if you need it? Like, there's all these little things that you can ask, things that you want to make sure that are there so that you can do the job correctly when you do it. Because when you assume, it usually doesn't turn out very well. So that's definitely, this one is do not assume. Number 6, this has been a pretty wide topic, and it's kind of a case-by-case basis, but don't talk politics. Politics are usually something that you kind of always want to stray away from, especially in this time, this day and age. Politics are kind of a feisty topic. You can even, be on the same team, as they call it, right, and still have major disagreements. It's pretty crazy. The political climate is, wildly just skeptical at this time. So it's just best to avoid all political conversations if it comes down to it. I've had some times, when I've walked in clients' houses and they're watching, a certain newscast or whatever, and they're just blaring it, and they're talking all this stuff about, negative about this guy or negative about that guy, or they should do this to that guy or whatever. And as the service professional, I just need to be there and just listen. I don't want to fuel any flames or say anything that they might not believe or that I might not believe. Just keep my own opinions in my head here, and let them just continue talking about what they want to talk about. It's perfectly fine, though, if they continue doing that. You can say, I would just much rather us not talk about politics and I just want to focus on my work. That's perfectly fine. You can set that boundary, but as long as you don't engage in the political conversations, because again, that can always turn south. Now, a caveat to this is I do have some really good clients that I've had for many years that we do talk politics. We know where each other stands. Some of the clients even stand on the opposite side. And I think that's really great. That's when civilization is at its best, when you have two opposing arguments that can actually talk about something and basically agree to disagree. It's a beautiful thing when people can come together and do that. So you have to pick and choose that, but definitely if you haven't worked for someone more than probably 3 or 5 times, you probably do not want to talk about politics. Just leave that one out the door. Number 7, this one is huge. I asked a lot of people, a lot of my friends and family on my private Facebook page, what they would like to not see a handyman do when they come into their house. And a lot of people said, don't use my restroom without asking permission. Now, they're perfectly fine with you using the bathroom. Like, these people are like, the bathroom's completely open, but I just don't want to walk into the bathroom and just, smell like a bomb went off in there and not know what happened. Like, it's really funny. So these people, the clients really just want you to ask for permission to use their restroom when you get to their house. Don't just take advantage of their house. And since they've let you in the front door, don't think that you can just rifle through the whole house and go everywhere. Like, even if I have to go into the master bedroom and they haven't walked me through there yet, I always go and get them. I say, hey, can you show me what's going on in the master bedroom? Just so they lead me throughout the house. So I'm not just walking into rooms, blindly, never being in them before. I don't want to invade someone's privacy, because someone's house, a client's house, is very sacred to them, and we do not want to trample on that as a service professional. So that includes their bathroom. Even if you're working in the bathroom, like I've been working in the bathroom, I'll come out and I'll ask the client, hey client, do you mind if I use your restroom real quick? Most of the time they're like, oh yeah, that's perfectly fine. Here's the dish soap, here's the towel, use whatever you need. Most clients are super cool about everything. They're like, yeah, go in the fridge, get a Coke, have a cookie, whatever you want. But if clients don't give you that permission, make sure that you ask for it, because it can be a breach of just of security, really, if you just kind of take advantage of people like that. So that's a very important thing that you want to make sure that you do, is ask people permission to use their bathroom and other amenities in their house before you actually do that. Number 8, this is a really funny one, because we had an employee about a year ago where I remember one time we were doing a job, and it was his first time doing this job. I was coaching him through the job, and I don't even remember what it was, but when he was doing it, like something, like he was trying to get something off. I don't remember what it was, whether it's plumbing, electrical, whatever. He was trying to get something off, and he was pulling, and finally it came, and he said, "Oh man!" Like he made a huge noise, And I'm like, dude, like, be quiet. Like, we don't want to present that to the client that something bad is happening, because something bad was not happening. You were just shocked at the way that this thing happened. So it was just really funny, but you want to make sure. So basically, my number 8 is don't shout things in the client's house. Don't be like, "Oh man," or "ah, ooh, ah," if you're happen to working on electrical and some sparks fly or something, you need to make sure you go shut off the circuit breaker beforehand so that doesn't happen. But if that does happen, you need to not be so shocked about it, and just take it with a grain of salt and not announce it to the whole world. That's a very important thing, because when you do shout things like that to the client's house, it can present a lot of insecurities to the client, wondering if this guy actually knows what he's doing that he's supposed to be in my house to do. So you want to exude all kinds of confidence as much as you can while you're in the client's house, and professionalism. Number 9, and this is something that I've been guilty of in the past. As we were writing this list, I was kind of thinking of some situations where I've done this exact thing, and I'm kind of ashamed of it, but I've done it. It's part of my history, part of my past. I can gladly say that I don't do it anymore, but it is saying to the client, "I underbid this job. I'm going to need some more money," after the job is done. Now, there's a caveat to this, right? Because if the job turns into more work than what you originally estimated, then yeah, that's a change order. You can talk to the client about that and say, "Hey client, this is a new aspect of this job that I had quoted, and this new aspect of the job is going to be X amount." Now that's something that you want to talk about before you actually start doing the work. When you notice the change order, or when the client brings a change order to you, you're going to talk about pricing at that moment. But what I'm talking about here is doing a job like, say, gutter cleaning, right? And you estimate the gutter cleaning at X amount per feet, or whatever you want to do, and you get done cleaning it all, and it took you an hour longer than you expected for no unknown reason. It wasn't necessarily clogged more. Maybe there was more gutter than you thought, but you looked at the whole project and you estimated it. You even got up on a ladder and you looked at how much was in the gutter, but it took you an hour more than what you thought. But there was no change of the job. You physically just underestimated the amount of labor that it would take. In that case, I believe it is incorrect to go to the client and say, "I'm going to need some more money." At that point, you just need to suck it up. You need to chop it up as a learning experience, take the least amount of money, and just move on and charge more next time. I think that is the most professional way to do moving from that. But again, if there's a change order, if more work has been brought to the attention, then you can definitely go ahead and say that this is going to cost more money because there is this change order. So I've done that in the past. I don't even remember. I have one instance in mind, but I don't even remember what we were doing at that client's house. We got done with the client's house probably at 8 o'clock at night, because whatever it was, it took us three hours longer than what we had thought, 2 or 3 hours longer than what we thought. And it was late at night. I was just like, man, we lost their butt. I had one employee out there, and I went to the client. And I'm like, "Hey, this took us 2 or 3 hours longer than we thought. Would you be willing to split the difference with me?" So I think she ended up paying an extra hour and a half or whatever of what we were charging at the time. We don't charge like that anymore. I don't do stuff like that anymore, but this was probably like 3 years ago or so. She ended up doing it, but I've never heard back from that client again. I don't know if I hadn't heard back from that client because of that instance, or because of something else we did, but it's just never a good thing to do. It leaves bad taste in people's mouths. Number 10, this is so important. I learned this from my brother's football coach when he was in high school, is if you are on time, you are late, and if you are early, you are on time. I think that's so important, and that's something that I try and live by, is if you are on time, you are late, and if you are early, you are on time. I think that's so important. So number 10 is basically don't be late. Show up to the job when you say you're going to show up to the job. Just by nature, I like to be at the job at least 5 minutes beforehand. At least, so if I'm supposed to get there at 8 o'clock, be there at 7:55. I ultimately like to be there 10 to 15 minutes beforehand, just because that's my nature, but at least 5 minutes beforehand. So if it starts at 8, be there at 7:55, 7:45 if you can. I just hang out in the truck. I review the job through our Marcade app, make sure that I know everything that needs to be done, make sure I have all the materials that need to be done. Brief myself on the client's name, make sure I'm at the correct address. You know, if I need to get out, open my truck, get my tools ready, things like that, and then go ring the doorbell right at 8 o'clock. So that way you are as punctual as can be. You are right there. Once that clock turns from 7:59 to 8 o'clock, you're ringing that doorbell. I just think that from the get-go, that will shine the best light on the job that you're going to do at the client's house. Because if you look at it, if you tell the client you're going to be there at 8 o'clock and you don't show up till 8:30, what do you think they're thinking about during that 30-minute time period if you didn't call? They're like, whoa, is this guy going to show up? Like, what's his work going to be like if he's 30 minutes late and didn't call? Like, is he going to finish on time? Is he going to finish today? Is he going to need to come back tomorrow? Is he not going to be able to come back tomorrow? Is he going to need to come back next week? Like, what's this job going to turn into? Like, there's so much speculation that goes on within those 30 minutes or even 15 minutes or even 10 minutes or 5 minutes. If you are late at all, it presents a whole lot of speculation in the client's mind. So if you're going to be late, I also like to do, say if we have 2 jobs in a day, which we typically do, and say the second job is supposed to start about 1 o'clock. But if the first job is running late, if you're going to be at that first job longer, I usually like to call that 1 o'clock appointment by noon. So at least an hour ahead of time, if not an hour and a half ahead of time, just to tell them, hey, you know, the first job's running a little bit long. It looks like, you know, we're going to be, you know, half hour late, maybe an hour late, depending on you can kind of judge the scope of work that you're currently doing, to give that client an accurate time frame of when you're going to be out there at the next job. But very important to have good communication. That's very, very, very important. All right, so that's all 10, but I got some extra ones for you. There was a lot of really good ones that came in through the Handyman Journey Mastermind group and on my personal Facebook page. So I wanted to kind of quickly go through those. I'll do number 1 of the extra here. Don't lie. Don't lie is such an important aspect of business. If you lie to anyone in business or in life, man, you need to check yourself. That's not good, and it's going to come back around to bite you in the butt. Another one here is don't ask the client, do you have the tools for that? Can I borrow your ladder? Do you have a wrench that I can use? You know, this is stuff that's not going to turn out very well. Someone posted on my Facebook page, do you want to see a picture of my pet ferret? That was a funny one, but don't ask the client if they want to see a picture of your pet ferret. No one wants to see a picture of your pet ferret. And then another one, I think this is a good one. Don't jump on a counter at the client's house without asking them for permission to do so. So again, that kind of goes back to the bathroom thing, is since they've let you in the house, don't think that you have rule and reign over the house. If you're going to need to step on the countertop, put a drop cloth down, you know, ask them if it's okay if you get up there and do some work. Maybe you need to reach some cabinets or some lights or something like that. But always, always, always put a drop cloth down on counters. That will save your butt many, many times over. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this particular video. Any stories that you guys have to share me, a lot of them have come through the Handyman Journey website. Go ahead and leave those in the comment section below, and anything else that you would want to add to these tips here, I would absolutely love to hear it. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel, and we will catch you on the next video.